exactly. It's that fear. And that fear
Mm-hmm.
and anxiety, they're kind of right together. And instead of like looking at myself with, what's going on with this anxiety or what's going on with this fear, am I willing to feel that? Am I willing to be in that, which I wasn't really willing to be in that? So I kind of pushed those feelings down by pursuing him.
Hmm. It's almost a way to numb the fear, isn't it? It
Hmm.
was a numbing. It was a numbing of the fear because
And to try to take control, that's,
yeah.
another way of putting it, I guess, to trying to control the situation, trying to make it so that we would stay together.
Let me ask you this: do you feel that because you mentioned the first thing you mentioned that you come from a divorced family?
Hmm.
Do you feel that anything that happened in the past as a child place you in the mindset of I need to take control or I need to ensure so this doesn't happen what happened into our family? Like did you find because I come from a single mom also.
Hmm.
And so I know exactly what you're saying with that. How did you transfer that information into
It's interesting because I think when I
regarding
was younger, I saw it as a positive that I was determined to stay together. I saw it as like I had grown up in a divorced home, so I saw it as a motivation, and I saw like my determination was so strong. I saw that as a strength. And so
mm-hmm,
I really leaned into that. And then, of course, now looking back, because I was unwilling to consider the option that it might not last or to consider that, because I was unwilling to look at that, again, it's kind of like pushing away that feeling of fear, the fear that it might not last. So it was like a defensive posture, I guess,
mm-hmm,
against
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
what I had experienced growing up.
So it's interesting because even though we're sharing as to the lessons that we're learning, right, as a woman, that doesn't mean that he is not responsible, right? The
Mm,
our significant other is not responsible for what's happening into the relationship. You
hmm.
know, and it's great that okay, you're from a divorced family. It's great that you're pushing hard, but that doesn't mean that he couldn't push hard. So I think we need to make sure we clarify that so that it's not like you're just taking all. You know what I mean? It's like we're learning lessons, but sometimes we have to be careful that we don't place a lot of the blame on us because it's really
Yes.
a two-sided. Once the person made the commitment to marriage and a long-term relationship, which is what marriage is, then there's work to be done. There are relationship duties, as I want to say, that possibly, like you're saying, he didn't do. And if anything, what you try to do is that you look like I don't want to say overcorrect, but you were trying to compensate for his lack of what he didn't bring to the relationship.
Yes, I think overcorrecting, it's interesting that's connecting too. So I was kind of overcorrecting from my parents' divorce and
Hmm.
not having, growing up in an intact home. I overcorrected for that. And then, yeah, the kind of like the less he would do, I would overcorrect and I would do more.
Hmm. Still doesn't take it away from he could have still said, okay, don't worry, you don't have to cook 8 times, 8 times a week, 8 days a week. Why don't I take you out? You know what I mean? That
Yeah.
doesn't mean, you know what I mean? It's like the person still was able to, you know, the person was still able to come in and view you for who you are, for how special you are, and
Hmm.
say, no, honey, you don't have to cook this Friday night. Let me take you out and give you a special day or whatever.
Yeah.
But if we're filling the hole, but what you're saying is if we're constantly filling that hole, we'll never find out
Right.
if that commitment is even in there.
Right.
Yeah.
So true.
So so any other seeds that a person who is looking into, whether it's your first love or your second love, second marriage, any type of seeds that a woman should pay attention to as they're going into a loving relationship, a healthy, loving relationship. Let me put the word healthy in there.
Definitely a
Healthy.
healthy, I always say authentic, really bonded connection. That's what I
Yeah.
find women talking about a lot. They want like a real, a real connection, definitely not settling. One of the things I
Mm-hmm.
think is really interesting, I don't know if this started changing in the 50s or the 60s, but it's like we got away from this of actually dating. I kind of think, and maybe this is just my fantasy, but I kind of think about my grandma's day, and I kind of think of, they thought like courting, and like, I kind of think about women in those days, didn't they like have a couple boyfriends, and then they, one of them would kind of shine through. And people don't want to date anymore. They want to just meet and go right to a committed relationship. And I would see that as a red flag because, again, this kind of ties back to that same idea of you want to see it, how, is he interested in you? How interested is he actually? Are you just kind
Mm-hmm.
of convenient for him that he's like willing to be with you? Or does he like really want to be with you? And when you allow, whether it's talking to different men, meeting different men, this doesn't necessarily mean you actually like have relationship with different men, but that you are
Yeah.
open to talking to different men and actually going through this dating process where you're
Mm-hmm.
taking your time and taking it slow and being in that uh, kind of, it's a little uncomfortable being in dating, but that's where you find out where your own commitment is. How much do you want to be there, and you find out how much he wants to be there, and you find out so much about each other. It's a really, really important stage to go through. And the funny thing
Mm-hmm.
is when we look back, like once we're in relationship, we look back to the beginning, and it's like, oh, those were such good times back in the beginning, back when we were falling in love. But when we're in that moment of falling in love, and sometimes going over bumps, we don't really want to be in that uncomfortable part
Mm-hmm.
where things aren't sure, and we don't know if we like him, we don't know if he likes us. So
Yes.
that's why I believe it's important to help women and kind of go with them hand in hand through that process
Mm-hmm.
as a
And I think,
process.
yeah, and it's interesting that you mentioned, right? It's a process. Building a relationship, whether it's in business and life and love, it's a process. And I think somewhere, and you're correct, because I do, speak with a lot of young ladies, and people our age, right? People of different ages. Somewhere along the line, the timeline sped up. So yes, it used to be, 3 months, you would talk with someone, find out their last name, how many how many dogs they have, how many cats in the family, right? Where the family is actually from. All of those great questions. I think we literally like bypass the assessment of a relationship.
Exactly,
And a
assessment.
lot of right, and a lot of in situation have happened to the point where I've spoken with people that have been in relationships only to find out that they were related because they didn't even
Wow.
take the time to assess we may be family members. Yeah. So, but how can you know that if you meet, a person in the club, or you meet, I'm not just saying in the club, it's anywhere
Right,
at a conference, a club, it doesn't matter, or the cafe, it doesn't matter.
right.
But by the time it goes for, and I don't know if it's part of, the way that social media portrays love. Everything is Monday. By Monday, you see the person. Tuesday, you're married, and Wednesday, you have a cute infant in your arm. Type of mind frame. And so
Mhm.
we're losing track on the timeline, the real, as you mentioned, real timeline that it actually takes to build a relationship. And you're right on with that. Is I think we need to do that more, where in any relationship, really find out a little bit about the person before jumping, figuratively or literally in bed with them. Really.
Exactly. And taking a breath, taking it slow, enjoying
Hmm.
it. When did
Yeah.
dating stop being fun? Like, isn't this supposed to be
Yeah.
fun? You're flirting and I don't
Yeah.
know, and you got butterflies and you're winking at him and maybe he's winking at you, or, oh, there's another guy over there. What's going on? Like, when did that stop
Make
being
it,
fun?
make it an adventure. Really, you're right. Make it an adventure. And if, especially
Exactly.
if this is going to be a person that you look for to be, for you, in your life forever, right? The forever love. So I think
Mm.
it's worth it. It's
And
worth
that's what
it.
I talk a lot to my clients too, as well, is like I said, they want
Hmm.
this authentic connection, this bonded connection. They want a real connection. They want it to be forever. And at the same time, they want to meet somebody and then that day be in a committed relationship, skipping over this dating phase. And those two things don't really go together. So if you're
Hmm.
just willing to be just with whoever and settle and you don't really care who it is, which of course we all care who it is, and that's going to have a huge impact on whether it's successful. But then we just got to take it slower, let it grow. You don't plant a seed. We talk about seeds. You don't plant a seed and then have a tree the next day. You water it and you put some fertilizer and you come back in a week and you look, oh, what's going on? Uh-oh, it's looking too dry, and take it
The
slow.
joy of doing it. Yeah. So it is. What inspired you to take this journey? I hear your experience. I hear what have happened to you, but what made you take it to that path where now you become a dating coach?
So I just feel it's like once I was in that position where I was 48 and I was single, and it kind of started with trying to figure out what to do with online dating, but I ended up
Hmm.
really going on a whole learning journey and learning more about what are women like, what are men like, how do
Hmm.
these relationships work. And I learned so many things that I'm like, wait a minute, this isn't what I learned in the magazines. This is what I learned in the, movies, or what my girlfriends would say. This is completely
Hmm.
different. And it was just a completely different way of looking at things and doing things. And it was just this huge, like, aha, like, what? Why didn't somebody tell me this before? And I guess
Wow.
that's where the passion really came from inside me to share this with other women, because I'm just like, somebody needs to get the news out. We need to be talking about this.
That's fantastic. And I'm sure a lot of people are benefiting from that because, learning, like you said, the hindsight, right? If you can learn something that you can avoid, it can
Hmm.
totally save you a whole lot of headache, a whole lot of time, a whole lot of energy. And so to learn really about the importance of really just assessing your relationships right from the beginning. And I think it'll put you in a position of success, right? Would you agree with that?